Welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network. Our purpose and passion are simple: to highlight the incredible nonprofits that make our communities stronger. Each episode is a chance for these organizations to tell their story in their words, sharing not just what they do, but why it matters to the people they serve, to their supporters, and to all of us who believe in the power of community. Through podcasting, we hope to amplify their voices, inspire connection, and give them one more tool to impact the hearts of donors, partners, and neighbors alike. This work is made possible through the generous support of our incredible partners: Cap Trust, offering fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations; Western Health Advantage, a local not-for-profit health plan that believes healthcare is more than coverage. It's about caring. CORE, executive leadership and comprehensive support services. They work in it so you can work on it. And Five Star Bank, a local, trusted advisor to community nonprofits for over 25 years. When you think about leaving a dangerous situation, most people think about safety, shelter, and survival. But what if the reason someone stays is because they can't take their pet with them? In this episode, I sit down with Katie Campbell from Red Rover, an organization working at the powerful intersection of people and their pets. And what we uncover is something many of us have never fully considered: that for someone facing domestic violence, homelessness, or disaster, that bond with their animal can be the deciding factor between staying or finding a way out. Katie shares how Red Rover is stepping in to bridge that gap, providing emergency care, safe housing support, and disaster response for animals so families don't have to choose between their safety and the ones they love most. This is a conversation about compassion, about connection, and about what it really means to keep families whole, even when those families may have 4 legs, feathers, or fur, and speak with a bark, a squawk, or a purr. Katie Campbell, welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network.
Jeff, I'm so delighted to be here. Thank you for having me.
And we're excited to have you because I can't wait to hear the story of Red Rover.
Yeah.
But previously we were talking, and you have an incredible story that I think gives a lot of basis and foundation to the organization.
Sure.
Share that with us.
Yeah, I love it. It's one of my favorite stories to tell because it's a part of how I came to Red Rover and part of the reason why I love Red Rover so much. And obviously, I'll tell you a little bit more about Red Rover. But we really sit, I think, at the power of the human-animal bond, and understanding that people and pets are together, right? So I grew up in North Carolina, small town in North Carolina, lifelong animal lover. My mom was the president of our local humane society, so we always had animals around, right? Fast forward, I moved to Sacramento, California, way too many years ago for me to say on air right now. And I start working in the nonprofit world. I'm a proud AmeriCorps member. So I know we just passed AmeriCorps Week.
Congratulations, and
Yes.
thank you so much for that service.
Yeah. Thank you. And I found myself working at a family resource center in Oak Park, which is a part of our Birth and Beyond collaborative here in Sacramento County. And I was working with people experiencing or at risk of experiencing domestic violence and homelessness and other crises, right? I never put those two things together. So I never put animals and crisis together. And so I had my light bulb moment 10 years ago when I heard about Red Rover, and I realized that people might not leave an abuser, or they might not go access those services at a homeless shelter if they can't take their pets with them. And so we are true believers that pets are family. And so being here today with you and sharing about Red Rover's story is it's a fun conversation. And it's a little bit of a full circle moment for me, because I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about what I'm going to be doing here tomorrow in Sacramento.
Give me the genesis of Red Rover.
Yeah. So we started in 1987. We will be celebrating our 40th anniversary next year. Yeah, really, really excited about that. We started pretty big, actually. We worked internationally. We worked with all different kinds of animals, so wildlife, all different kinds. It was really around 2000, actually, that we started refining things a bit more. We started refining our geography, and so at this point, we are national, and we do a little bit in Canada as well. And we've also really refined our species focus. And so we are much more focused on companion animals. And I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit. But by extension, through some of our work with other organizations, we do help like some livestock animals. And so that's an important part of, who we help and serve. But much more focused now, many years later, on the United States, Canada, and companion animals.
And what we would say is companion animals,
Yep.
dogs, cats,
Yep.
predominantly.
Yeah. And so I will often use those terms interchangeably. So companion animals, pets, and yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. A lot of dogs, a lot of cats, birds, snakes,
Some
goats,
rabbits.
chickens. Yeah. We've had some fun deployments over the years where, our responders, volunteers are really helping to care for a wide variety of animals, which I'm sure we'll get into as
I
well.
can only imagine
Yeah.
some of those stories too.
Yes.
This pet has to come with me.
Yes.
You've got to be kidding me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
As far as the organization goes, what are some of the more popular services you provide?
Mhm.
What do people come to Red Rover for?
Sure. I think especially in California, over the last several years, we're really well known for our Red Rover Responders program, which you can actually see behind us here.
For
Um,
those who are watching on YouTube?
yes. Uh, we help provide that daily care for animals displaced in natural disasters. So for California, that's
Hmm.
certainly been a few of the wildfires over the
Floods,
last several years.
wildfires, mudslides.
Yep. And we are always asked to into community. We are never self-deployed. And so the
Interesting.
local community will ask us to come in. We basically mobilize our volunteers and we send a team in. And we literally provide the daily care for those animals while they are separated from their families, from their pet parents. And that's where, certainly we are caring for dogs and cats. I've personally been on a couple of our deployments where we had pigs and cows and sheep and goats and chickens and rabbits because, it's not just dogs and cats that people consider to be family. It
Hmm.
really is all different types of species that, are going to need that help. And so I think, especially for our California folks, like that's one of our really well known programs. Um, I would also say our Red Rover Relief Urgent Care program. And so that's where we're helping to provide small grants to get some emergency veterinary care done for animals. Under that umbrella is also where all of our domestic violence and our homelessness granting lives, which I think we might talk about
Yeah,
a
we're
little
going to dig
bit
a little bit
later.
deeper on that.
Yeah. And then, of course, we also have our Red Rover Readers program. And so it's really all about
It's one that I love.
yeah. It really is about teaching kids kindness, compassion, empathy for animals and people. And so really I think fostering that for the next generation. So
Hmm.
yeah. And in a nutshell, that's what we do. Yeah.
That's the surface of the nutshell that we're going to start to crack and get into a
Yes.
little bit here.
Yeah.
So when you look at the people you serve,
Mm.
who is it literally that you see on a day-to-day basis?
Hmm. On a day-to-day basis, that's where I think our urgent veterinary care grants come in. And it's also, I would say, our safe escape grants. Those are the types of services that we're providing daily. For our urgent care grants, we're communicating with the pet parents themselves. They have taken their pet to the vet. There is an emergency need, and they're reaching out to us and applying, for that grant. And so our case managers are working with them one on one. Also, for our safe escape grants, our case managers are working with domestic violence organizations. And so a survivor has gone to an organization, they have a pet. For whatever reason, that organization is not able to keep the pet on site. And so they're helping to submit a grant to us so that we can help cover the cost of boarding for that pet. Our case managers do a wonderful job day to day, just helping folks through really crisis and traumatic situations. And so that I would say is what we do on a day to day basis. There's also a lot of behind the scenes stuff that our team is doing with training and support and some of our other programs as well. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about the service part of somebody with a pet.
Hmm.
There's an issue,
Hmm.
and who are those collaborators that you work with? I'm
Hmm.
imagining you're probably touching SPCA, you're touching
Hmm.
domestic violence centers and
Hmm.
organizations that
Hmm.
are for those in crisis
Hmm. Yeah.
from domestic violence.
Hmm.
What does that look like? How does anybody even know to engage with you?
Yeah. Yeah. For our veterinary grants, there are so many clinics across the country who just know about us. So many
Okay.
vet clinics that, some way or another over, the last almost 40 years, know that we exist. And so, they're sending the pet parents to us. Um, when it comes to some of our domestic violence work, which is a little bit younger for us, we really started in 2012. We've done a lot of work to engage with communities across the country. And so engage with some of those organizations you just mentioned, domestic violence organizations, animal shelters, animal rescues, and make sure that they know that we're there, and that they can send folks to us whenever they do run into those situations. I think, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later, our partnership with Purina and the
Hmm.
Purple Leaf Project has really been a game changer for us in helping to make sure, especially for domestic violence, that domestic violence service survivors know that we have resources available.
And to expand just a little bit on that,
Yeah.
for people to understand, you are actually bridging two
Mhm.
huge gaps here.
Mhm.
The domestic violence escapee
Mhm.
who's trying to get out of the situation, as you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier, may
Yeah.
not leave if they can't get their pet
Absolutely.
with them.
Yeah.
And those pets can be held hostage in so
Yeah.
many instances where
Yeah.
the pet doesn't go,
Yeah.
meaning you're stuck
Yep.
because the relationship is much stronger with the pet.
Yep.
They get to that point where, okay, we're going to figure this out.
Yeah.
So you're supporting them through the services and support of a third party domestic
Yes.
violence
Yep.
center, so to speak,
Yep.
and from the pet side for whatever care that pet needs as well, because in many
Yeah.
cases, sometimes the pet's abused.
Yeah. 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 We are often able, when we're giving a grant for a domestic violence survivor's pet, we are often able to help with the veterinary care. It's There was a report that came out a few years ago now. Urban Resource Institute in New York City
Mhm.
partnered with the National Domestic Violence Hotline. They surveyed, I think it was about 2,500 survivors about their experience of domestic violence and animal abuse. 97% of those survivors said keeping my pet with me factors into my decision to leave.
Mhm.
97%. The same time, 72% didn't even know that pet housing programs existed. And so I say that because I think it is so important that we help make sure that folks know these services exist and that there is support and help. And there was also a majority of those folks who said, I'm already noticing changes in my pet's behavior because of the abuse. And so, to your point, we absolutely know that it's the people that need support and help, and it's also their pets too. And so anytime we're working with an organization on our larger grants or safe housing grants, we're really coaching them through that.
Mhm.
It's really, we can't really help one without helping the other. And both of these species coming in are going to need that support.
And both living beings that
Yes.
require and deserve the
Yes.
support too.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about the homeless side of that, because
Hmm.
it's domestic violence
Hmm.
as well as
Yes.
homeless, because many of our homeless
Yeah.
population have
Yeah.
pets. The
Yeah.
pets are necessary for them.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is a really exciting and I would say natural progression for us in terms of our safe housing grants. We started with our homeless shelter grants in 2024, and now it's a permanent part of our
Mm.
programming, our safe housing grants programming. And you said it, for many people experiencing homelessness, they will say, this pet is my only emotional, social, and physical support that I have.
Mhm.
I've heard quite a few folks who say, my pet is my home, insert dog, cat, iguana, bird. But that animal really is their home. And so it's critically important that we create opportunities for them to get safety and service with their pet. So very, very natural progression. I will also say there's a big crossover between people experiencing domestic violence and people experiencing homelessness. The majority of women specifically who find themselves experiencing homelessness cite domestic violence as the immediate cause for that. And so this, I think, was a very, very natural progression for us, and we're excited to keep doing it. It's a wonderful, I think, part of our programming. And I would also say that the organizations that we're working with who are applying for us, who we see in coaching, who we're giving training to, are thrilled to be able to offer this because they see the benefit on the ground of keeping families whole, of keeping these people and their pets together.
Which makes perfectly good sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
In Sacramento,
Yeah.
having started so long ago, there's
Yeah.
probably a keen awareness, and,
Yeah.
and many organizations are familiar with
Yeah.
you and the services.
Yeah.
How did it grow out
Yeah.
into the rest of the country?
Yeah. Gosh, so you're taking me back. So I've been at Red Rover for about 10 years now.
Okay.
You're taking me back to when we started in 2012. We started with our safe housing grants. Pre-me, I would say
Not
we
much,
did.
though.
Yeah, I would say we had a very California focus, right? We were very much trying to focus in California. That started to transition around 2016, 2017 when I joined Red Rover. We intentionally wanted to go beyond the California border. And so we started looking for opportunities to present at national conferences. I sent a lot of emails and made a lot of phone calls to organizations throughout the country. And I was just like, hey, we've got grant funding for you. It's really, really important that you recognize pets when you're working with domestic violence survivors. And I'm not going to lie, Jeff, I had a lot of people not return my phone calls or, not respond to my emails because they just weren't ready for it. I come from the human services space. I know what I'm asking is hard. I know it's scary, which is part of the reason we created a training program that I'm sure we'll talk about later. But we transitioned and we realized that it's not enough for us to just provide grant funding. We need to walk this walk with them. And so in answer to your question, I think we saw the need to expand and the need to do more. We needed to provide training. We needed to provide that consultation to help organizations along this path. I do not remember what our number was way back when in 2012, but I can tell you at this point, we've now given over $6.5 million in safe housing grants.
Wow.
To domestic violence organizations, homeless organizations, and animal organizations throughout the country. And so, it grew because we had a desire and a knowledge that we needed to do more.
And you were accepted.
Yes. Yeah.
And then people were saying the need is here. We like what you're providing.
Yeah.
And that opportunity presented itself probably domestically first into then the realization these people have pets.
Yeah.
How do we service these pets?
Yeah. I often say that I'm very good at compassionately hounding folks. And it took some time, and it took some time for me to say, this is important. You have folks who are not going to come into shelter because they have pets and they want to keep their pets with them. And it just took some time to say, hey, we're going to do this with you. We know you have challenges. We know that you have concerns. We're going to support you through that. And over time, we have grown to, I think it's roughly 20% of domestic violence shelters in the U.S. are pet friendly. So they're able to keep survivors and pets on site and at the same location, at the same human services shelter. That's grown. Obviously, percentages always grow from somewhere, from zero, right?
Yes.
But in 2016, I think we were at like 3 or 6%. And so we have seen this massive growth. And it's wonderful. It's been wonderful to see organizations say, yeah, okay, we can do it. And we're also going to bring others along with us.
And they're accepting.
Yeah.
They're absolutely accepting, saying, okay, this is a necessity for the well-being of everybody, included.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the funding of the organization. How are you
Sure.
funded?
Yeah. We are funded predominantly by individual supporters. So I did some math a little bit earlier for this. I'm going to say roughly 75% of our funding comes from individual donors and supporters.
That's amazing.
Yep.
And that's wonderful too, because you're
Yeah.
not relying so much on grants that
Yeah.
maybe go away.
Yep.
As an AmeriCorps member, you know
Yeah.
that changed.
Yes. Yes. Things can be a little dicey from year to
Hmm.
year. We have no federal funding. We do have some grants, of course, and we have some wonderful corporate sponsorships and partnerships. But most of it's from individual donors, and it's from small to big, which we're extremely proud of. Yeah.
Yeah, that just that right there,
Hmm.
I think indicates the need for the organization, number
Hmm.
one, because it's individuals supporting
Yes.
it,
Yeah.
but it also gives you that comfort and sustainability.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as you get more and more familiar in areas of the country where maybe you're not as familiar,
Yeah.
that only grows.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
those other organizations then say, "Hey, there's another organization to help
Yeah.
us with this
Yeah.
pet thing. We've got these people coming with their pets. What do we do with them?"
Yes.
It just kind of
Yeah.
fuels itself.
Hmm.
How many people do you employ?
25.
And how big is the budget?
7 million.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. 25. Um,
And I know you have a cadre of volunteers out there.
We do. We do. Yeah. We like to say we're a small but mighty team, and we could not do what we do without our 4,800 plus
Mhm.
volunteers throughout the US and Canada, as well as our partnerships. We do a lot because of our partnerships. And so, small but mighty team. Yeah.
So many nonprofits.
Yeah.
That's just the story,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
A donor comes in, since you have the majority of your
Yeah.
funding from donors, and
Yeah.
says, "Katie, we love what you are doing.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, we'd like you to do more of it.
Yeah.
And if the vision's big enough, we're going to fund it."
Yeah.
What would it look like? What would you say?
Yeah. The vision. What's
What
the
would that
big
vision
vision?
look like? Right.
Well, ultimately, big vision. We're no longer needed, right?
Yeah, we work ourselves out of a
We
job.
work ourselves out of a job. For us, that looks like people and pets can stay healthy and together, right? So, it looks like every community has a disaster plan and they know what to do and they have the people to do it locally, right? And we train
Hmm.
communities on that. It
And that's
looks,
what we'll touch on in just a second.
yeah, yeah. And, it looks like accessible vet care, cost, but also location and geography, right? It looks like domestic violence survivors and people experiencing homelessness don't have to make a choice, and
Hmm.
every organization has services for them. And it looks like, I think, us creating a more compassionate future generation that really, understands and values living beings, animals and people. Ultimately, it's putting ourselves out of a job, I think, is the big vision. And I would have never really considered myself a fundraiser. I would not say it's, like high up there on my skill set. Um, but I have found that I've really, really enjoyed it because when I think of a donor and somebody who is willing to trust us with their money, I really, really value that.
Hmm.
Whether it's $5 one time or it's you're going to leave us, with that bequest, you are trusting us to do really good things with your money. And we're going to help you create impact. Because I think that's what donors want, right? Like, if you're going to donate somewhere,
That's why they give.
you want to create change. And so I see us as the vehicle of creating that change. Yeah.
And you're stewarding both ways. You're
Yeah.
stewarding the donor
Yeah.
for that
Hmm.
contribution,
Yeah.
but they expect you to be a good steward
Yeah.
of that contribution.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's a high expectation.
It is. It is. And we try and be very, very good stewards. You can go onto the website, you can see all of our financial documentation. We're actually in the middle of our audit right now. And we are as transparent as we can be.
Mhm.
Transparency is something that's really, really important to us, from, our everyday donor communications to our annual meeting. We really value folks knowing what their money is doing and being able to see that. And I'm sure it'll come up later. We're really proud to be telling our story, I think, in exciting new ways,
Mhm.
because that's important. You give money, you want to know what your money is doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And collaboration. I
Yeah.
think one of the key words we're seeing as budgets change
Yeah.
and funding changes
Yeah.
is the significance of collaboration amongst
Yes.
organizations. And what does that look like? And how do
Yeah.
you better
Yeah.
serve the constituents working together?
Hmm.
And in many cases, just being aware,
Yeah.
because people don't know.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, do you work with the Red Cross?
Yeah.
I'm thrilled. See,
Yeah.
that just
Yeah.
made sense. We've had them in
Yeah.
here, and I'm hearing
Yeah.
this whole pet situation
Yeah.
is catastrophic
Yeah.
during
Yeah.
a catastrophe
It is. Yeah.
for
Yeah.
the families, the
Yeah.
pets,
Yeah.
and for
Yeah.
whatever that particular situation is, and
Yeah.
everything's a mess.
Yep. Yep.
And somebody's got to bring it together.
Yes. Yeah. And we'll often work alongside Red Cross,
Hmm.
whenever they are serving a community after a disaster. But they are also big supporters of us. So even if, let's say, a disaster happens, we're not being called in to ask because the community doesn't need our support right then and there. Often what we will do is actually create a list of pet friendly resources in that community, right? And so
Okay.
we're vetting them, making sure that they're open, giving addresses, that sort of thing. And the Red Cross will often share that for us. And they really value that because while they may not be able to meet the needs of pet parents all the time in their responses, they know that it's an important part of it, and that,
Hmm.
folks may not leave a disaster zone if they can't take their pet with them.
And we've
And so it's
seen
a
that so
valuable
many
resource.
times.
Yeah.
Couldn't find you name the pet,
Yep. Yeah.
and people get
Yeah.
injured and in some cases perish because they wouldn't leave
Absolutely.
without that pet.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the significance of what you do is life and death in some situations.
Hmm.
We'll be back with more from Katie Campbell of Red Rover right after we hear from those responsible for helping this story get heard.
I'm James Beckwith, President and CEO of Five Star Bank. We're dedicated to supporting nonprofit organizations who advocate for the strength, resilience, and vitality of those they serve. When nonprofit organizations thrive, our community does too. By supporting the Nonprofit Podcast Network, Five Star Bank is amplifying the voices and meaningful impact of our nonprofit community. We're Five Star Bank, a trusted nonprofit partner. How can we help you?
We are really excited to be part of the family and contribute to the work that you all are doing. CORE provides fractional and interim executive services, along with comprehensive back office solutions that go into our client sites and do the work to give them the capacity they need in order to move through transitions, whether that's planned or unplanned. Or companies also work with our accounting and finance, back office solutions, human resources, technology, and administration. The reason why our back office solutions add value is because we save them time and money, anywhere from 20 to 30% of what they would spend on that back office solution. We work in it so they can actually work on it. CXORE.com and contact me directly at DTEAT@CXORE.com.
If you're interested in learning more about how CORE may help your organization, visit CXORE.com.
Hello, this is Scott Thomas with Cap Trust in our Sacramento office. I specialize in working with local nonprofits and associations. Annually, we survey private and public nonprofit organizations across the country to better understand challenges they see in today's environment. In our more recent survey, we heard concerns about proper board governance, mission-aligned investment, and how to implement alternative investments. If you would like a copy of the survey or to discuss your organization, look me up, Scott Thomas at captrust.com.
I'm thrilled to have Western Health Advantage partnering with us as they do so much to support so many nonprofit agencies in our community. As a truly local health plan, you'll find individual and family options, employer options, plans for CalPERS and Medicare Advantage. From medical services to pharmacy, health and wellness support, as well as behavioral health care, Western Health Advantage has a plan that fits what you need. As an employer, for profit or nonprofit business, individual or family, you can find more at westernhealth.com. Let's talk a little bit back about the training.
Yeah.
Because you have several elements of it.
Yeah.
There's training for organizations to learn how to deal with pets
Yep.
for the people that they serve.
Yeah.
But there's also training for schools. You're in
Yep.
schools with the program.
Yep.
So let's start with the one that's for the other organizations that serve people with pets.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So, it's some of that behind the scenes work. And so, oftentimes folks don't get to see it because it's behind the scenes. We do a lot of training with individual communities on disaster response. And so that's our responders program, really just making sure local communities know what to do, what supplies they need, how to do it. So there's that training. The training that I am here in Sacramento for tomorrow is part of our Don't Forget the Pets collaborative. So we've been collaborating with Greater Good Charities since 2019 now. And we travel all over the country. And we provide free training to human services organizations, animal services organizations, veterinary community, law enforcement, anybody else who's interested on how to create pet housing programs. And so it's essentially bringing folks together from these different sectors into the same room to talk about why it's important and how to do it. So from collaboration, who do you collaborate with, how do you start that, to program design, to physically, what does your space look like, to policies and procedures, which I know everybody loves policies and
Yes.
procedures. It's one of my favorite parts of the talk, but we talk about
Just ahead
policies.
of fundraising, right?
Just ahead of fundraising. You got it. Yes. Fundraising is honestly probably the easiest part of all of it because a lot of people like donating to animal causes. But we really kind of walk them through that process. So it's kind of 30,000 foot view. After the training is done, we offer a ton of support after the fact. So we do free coaching, one-on-one coaching with the organizations, or, an organization and their collaborative partners. The reason why I love the training so much is because we in the nonprofit world tend to get really siloed. We don't really talk to the other folks in the community, right? And I know that from my days working here in Sacramento.
Improving, but still a long way to go.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And so we tend to get really siloed. And so we're just physically bringing people together to meet each other. And that for me is the really, really exciting part of this training that we do. So we're going to be doing that tomorrow. Can I share why I'm personally excited about
Absolutely.
that training? Okay. So I think I mentioned a little bit earlier, this feels like a full circle trip for me to Sacramento. I was a AmeriCorps member. I worked at the Family Resource Center in Oak Park. We're going to be doing the training at La Familia Counseling Center tomorrow. And one of the co-hosts was my former trainer at the Child Abuse Prevention Center when I was an AmeriCorps member. And so it's really, really exciting to, I think, be working with these folks. They're at the Sacramento Family Justice Center now. They recognize the need to recognize pets with the folks they're serving. And so, in our own backyard here in Sacramento, it's just wonderful, I think, to be bringing this community together, to be talking about this and how we move forward as a community, because that is one of the most important parts of this pet housing program work. Is it takes a community. It can't be one organization doing it on their own. They absolutely have to have that community support to do it well and to do it long term. So, yeah.
Couldn't agree with you more on that.
Yeah.
And breaking down these silos is
Yes.
so necessary. Back to the conversation about collaboration.
Yeah.
It's absolutely necessary today.
It is.
And it's hard for some people to do,
It is.
but it's going to have to happen, or their organization may not be here 2
Yeah.
years, 3 years, 4 years from now.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's work.
Yes.
It's
It's difficult when you only had to do your thing by
Yes.
yourself and you
Yes.
have to engage all these other
Yes.
people. But today
Yeah.
you must
Yeah.
engage other people.
You must, and it's building a relationship. We have longstanding partnerships with a number of organizations. I would say, one of the best examples of this is actually with Greater Good Charities. it's work. Like we talk all the time about
Mhm.
like, hey, what's working, what's not working, what do we need to do? What are the gaps that we need to fill? Okay, like what are we doing? What are you doing? And it's building a relationship
Mhm.
and it's continuous conversation. And in the end, it is so worth it. I think we've trained through this alone, I want to say more than 3,600 people. It's like that's really impactful work. And that's in multiple communities across the
Those are
country.
boots on the ground.
Yeah.
Those are people actually doing the work.
Yes. Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about the school system.
Yes. Yeah.
Because what I think is so important there is if we can educate our youth, our
Mhm.
children,
Yeah.
that this is the way things are or
Yep.
should be,
Yep.
we save ourselves a lot of trouble down the line.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
And you've got a program for kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me how that thing gets implemented. What's it do in the school system? How
Yeah.
do you engage it in the community?
Sure, sure. Yeah. I'm going to tie it back to, hey, what is it? What's the big vision? The
Yep.
big vision is we prevent abuse, cruelty, and neglect before it even happens, right? And I think that is what is really at the core of our Red Rover Readers program and our Kind News magazine. So, in a nutshell, Kind News magazine, I often think of it as Ranger Rick. That's what I had when I was a kid. But it is a animal themed magazine that goes into a classroom, free to the classroom. It goes in free 5 times a school year, and it's based on science. It's based on animals from all around the world, and teaching kids about animals and getting them engaged. And it's similar to the Red Rover Readers program in that it uses open-ended, non-judgmental questions,
Mhm.
to really engage kids in conversations, start building that perspective taking, understanding how to take that perspective, which builds into empathy, right? Um, and the Readers program is a bit more formal. And so I call it a train the trainer model. And so we train folks, usually teachers or humane educators, on how to use children's books, again, to engage kids in conversation. And so
Mhm.
each book in the curriculum comes with a guide and it walks the reader through how to read the book, when to ask the questions. And again, it's all open ended, non judgmental questions. Um, Folks can actually take the Red Rover Readers training for free right now. It's online at our website. There's support on the back end for folks as they have questions. But we've seen just these wonderful stories of, a kid, I think was actually maybe a local Sacramento child many, many years ago. They were reading, I want to say it was Community Cats was the book. Nobody's Cats. Nobody's Cats is the name of the book. And they read the book in school. And the kid, the student, realized that he had a family member who was throwing rocks at some of the cats in his neighborhood. After reading the book, he went home to his family member and he said, "Hey, I don't think we should be doing that anymore. Can we not throw rocks at the cats anymore?" And the family member stopped doing it. And then the kid got to go back to his teacher and report that. There's another wonderful story of this is a little bit of a more recent story. Kids were reading the Kind News magazine in the
Mhm.
classroom, and they heard a story because we use real life stories. They heard a story of another classroom, another group of kids who were helping an animal get some veterinary care that they needed. And the kids were so inspired by it that they started talking and working with their local like neighborhood animals to see how they could help them get the emergency veterinary care that they needed. And so I think the most powerful thing that it shows kids is that they have the control, they have the ability to have impact in their own lives, right? They have impact to change what their relatives do. They have impact to change what happens in their neighborhood. And I mean, how powerful is that right now to like show kids what power they have?
Mhm.
I think it's amazing. It's an amazing part of our work. So yeah.
And so many times when that student child sees the effect
Hmm.
of a pet passing,
Yeah.
it it's an emotional, in many cases as much as a family member,
Yeah.
or if it's their
Yeah.
pet
Yeah.
and they realize it at an
Yeah.
early age, they realize the value
Yeah.
of that pet.
Yeah.
and that relationship that they
Yeah.
had with the pet,
Yeah.
all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those can be traumatic experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think kids tend to be so engaged and interested in animals. And
Yeah.
even if a kid, for whatever reason, already has some fear around an animal, our Red Rover Readers program, in its truest sense, we intentionally don't bring live animals into a reading because of this, because of those kids who might already have a fear of animals. After reading it, we're giving them the opportunity for like a different story of what it means to like share your life with animals. And we've heard that like quite a bit, like, so-and-so was afraid of cats. And now after going through this program, they're not afraid of cats anymore, or they're a little less afraid. And they don't, that's our goal, is like, hey, let's just work towards being a little less afraid.
Yeah.
Because I think kids really do love animals. They're really interested in them. And so I think that's part of the reason why our books and the Kind News magazine works so well.
You had mentioned that you can get all the information through the website, which we'll post on the show notes of the episode.
Yeah.
So we came off of your funding.
Yeah.
What's the greatest need? Where do you need the most today?
Where do we need the most today? I would say across the board is where we need the most today. So we always need volunteers, certainly. So that's, one way, non-monetary, that folks can support. Becoming a monthly donor, I think, is one of the easiest and best ways for us as an organization. It allows us to be able to count on, hey, we've got this monthly donation coming in every month. And it allows us to pivot, where we need. And when a crisis comes up, we know that we're going to have that funding available when we need it. I think all of our programs at this point, they need it. I don't know that there is one that needs it more than another.
Yeah, it's just a
at this point.
distribution of funding.
Yeah.
However you want to see it come in.
Yes. Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah. Flexibility is always great as an organization. So
when you look at the organization on an annual basis and you
Yes.
say, okay, I think you mentioned this is the biggest revenue year you've ever had. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What does success look like? How do you
Yeah.
gauge your success and say, we are making the impact we expect, and here's what it looks like?
Yeah. It's a wonderful question. And I think it's an important question. I will say certainly there's success in numbers, right? So there's success in last year, we just helped our 9,000th animal with an urgent care, with a veterinary grant. I mentioned it a little bit earlier. We've provided $6.5 million in safe housing grants to keep people and pets safe and together. There's success in numbers, right? For me, when I measure success as an organization, I think it's a little more intangible for us. I should also say we also had our 300th Red Rover Responders deployment last year as well. So
Awesome.
Yeah, again, success in numbers. What I think is at the base of all of that is that we are meeting people with compassion and empathy across the board. And so what do I mean by that? I mean that every pet parent who applies for an urgent care grant gets that compassionate, empathetic response, right? Every domestic violence survivor, while we're not talking directly to them, but every domestic violence survivor who gets that boarding grant is met with a compassionate response. So we are telling people it's okay for you to be nervous about your pet. It's okay for you to want them to be safe. And I think honestly, that's the best success that we have, is just meeting folks with compassion at potentially one of the most traumatic times of their lives, and not judging them because they're worried about their pet. That might sound a little cheesy, but I think that's success for us at the root.
I don't think so. And I think you can see it on the smile on their face when they realize that the pet's going to be taken care of. You can see it in the tears of joy that, oh my gosh, you got me to stay with my pet in a situation that I had to leave. I had to leave. And I didn't have to leave my pet alone. So I think those faces in the individual, which you don't get to see all the time because they're
No.
going through third-party
Yeah.
organizations. But
Yeah.
even there, I think they feel the same way, that if I couldn't have taken
Yeah.
some care for this pet,
Yeah.
this woman wouldn't be
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
She might still be in a
Yeah.
bad situation, or
Yeah.
the family, or he, whatever that situation is.
Yeah. Yeah.
You deal with an emotional element, and
Yeah.
you come from an empathic
Yeah.
history
Yes. Yeah.
in your career, just
Yeah.
what you do,
Yeah.
serving the community the way you have.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the line, we all need a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
What does Katie do to kind of
Yeah.
get away from it, to refresh, to relax?
Yeah. I think it's one of the most important conversations that I think we as folks from the nonprofit world can and should have. This is passion work. And I think that is what makes people good at it, is they're passionate about it, but it is also the thing that makes this work really, really hard. So first, I will just say, as an organization, because I don't get, I'm not as directly involved with pet parents. It is something that our team is really, really committed to, and they support each other. And we have a lot of compassion and empathy around it. For me personally, um, times can be hard. And so I personally find a lot of value in my own pets and my own family, of course.
Well, I have to ask, what
Yeah.
pets do you have?
Yeah. So my wife and I currently have 3 dogs.
Okay.
We have 2 husky mixes. And then our newest addition is Super Mutt. He's got 17 different breeds in him. He's about 6 months old. And, I get so much just joy and just comfort from them, right?
Hmm.
So there's certainly that. Um, I also have to remind myself that I can't do everything, but I can do my part,
Hmm.
right? And, it can be overwhelming, to think about and to see, the number of folks who want or need help. And I can just do my part, and I have a folder in my email inbox. It literally says when I need a reminder. And it's those stories that, have just really touched me over the years. And I put them in that email inbox. And then when I need the reminder of like, okay, this is the good that we've done, this is what we've done, I can go to that. And it's something that I do with the team as well. And, I think we have other team members who also, have really done that over the years too. Like, hey, this is a wonderful story we heard in our program. We want to share it with everybody because all of our team contribute to this amazing work. It's not just the case managers or the program folks who are doing, the day-to-day, let's say.
Right.
It is absolutely every single person on our team who contributes to the work. And so I'm proud of just our culture of like, hey, let's share these successes with everybody, because it's hard.
I think that's a great reminder for everybody. Find something that demonstrates the good you do.
Yeah.
And whenever you're in that space of
Yep.
questioning,
Yeah. Yeah.
pull it back up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's reality.
Yeah, it is reality. And I would also say it's also okay to have that moment where you're like, today just stinks.
That happens. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And giving yourself, I think, permission to just be in that moment. Today stinks.
Yep.
Tomorrow's going to be better. And then, get those reminders, whatever it is that you take care of yourself with, do it. But also allow yourself to have that moment where today just stinks. Yeah.
What's the best way for the community to support the organization? What should they do? Where do they go? What do you suggest?
Yeah, I feel like this is probably the response of every nonprofit that you have on the show. Go to the website.
Yes.
Yeah, redrover.org. Certainly become a volunteer for us. You don't have to have all the know-how. You just have to have a willingness to join us. You can do the training for free, redrover.org/join responders. Of course, donate. Again, go to the website, redrover.org. You'll see all of the donation opportunities. Absolutely donate to us. And I would say, generally, anybody Just talk about Red Rover. Make sure folks know that our emergency vet care is there for folks. Make sure that they know that we have resources for domestic violence survivors, and make sure that they know that there's this magazine that can go free into the
For the
classrooms.
kids,
Yeah,
yes.
and teach our kids about kindness, compassion, and empathy for animals and people. So, baseline answer to your question: go to the website.
And we will have that posted in the show
Yes.
notes, like I said
Yes.
earlier. So it's
Yeah.
easy for people because
Yeah.
a lot of people are just listening or driving when
Yeah.
they listen to the podcasts.
Yeah.
Sometimes the smallest act of help you mentioned could be $25.
Yeah.
It could be $250, could be
Yeah.
$2,500
Yeah.
to provide a safe place for a pet,
Mm-hmm.
for somebody in a tragic situation,
Mm-hmm.
is all it takes to change a life. And that
Mhm.
life changes in a community, and it
Yeah.
changes the community by the
Yeah.
community support.
Yeah.
So what you and your team and those 25 and 4,800 volunteers are doing across the country,
Yeah.
I'm excited and proud to say that it originated here in Sacramento.
Yeah.
And we have several organizations that we're seeing now make a much bigger impact outside what is an AmeriCorps organization.
Yeah.
And so to have it originate here, just that pride
Yeah.
of Sacramento
Yeah.
helping the country.
Yeah.
And now knowing and seeing you and hearing the
Yeah.
story, a $7 million budget
Yeah.
is huge.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
and thanks for what you guys do every
Yeah.
day for us.
Oh my gosh, thank you, thank you. And I don't live in Sacramento anymore. I live in New York. I consider Sacramento home still. I am so proud that Sacramento is our home base. And Sacramentans, be proud that you have an organization in your backyard that has been making change since Hurricane Katrina, right? We have really helped transform on a national level how we respond to disasters across the country. Sacramento, we're driving how people respond to people and pets in crises, from domestic violence to homelessness to access to vet care. You have an organization in your backyard that is not just creating ripples, I would say is creating waves across the country and internationally at this point. So yeah, be proud, Sacramento.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Nonprofit Podcast Network. We hope today's episode inspired you and gave you a deeper look into the work of our local nonprofits. If you believe in our mission to amplify their voices, please take a moment to leave us a positive review and share this episode with a friend. It helps more people discover the incredible work happening in our community. And don't miss future episodes. Subscribe to our weekly updates and monthly newsletter at nonprofpod.com. And if you're part of a nonprofit that would like to be featured, we'd love to hear from you. Just visit the Guests tab on our website. The Nonprofit Podcast Network is recorded and produced at Hear Me Now Studio with generous support from our outstanding partners. CapTrust, fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations. Online at captrust.com. Western Health Advantage, local care with community impact. Find the plan that fits at westernhealth.com. CORE, executive leadership and comprehensive support services. Visit cxore.com. And 5 Star Bank, a local trusted advisor to community nonprofits for over 25 years. 5starbank.com.